When I was younger, I was afraid at the sight of a course itself, and you couldn't even get me to venture near a funeral home.
This is TSN In Depth. I'm Rick Westhead, joined by former Montreal Expo and Baseball Hall of Famer Andre Dawson. Andre, thanks for spending a few minutes with us today. And I wonder if you can fill in the audience about how you've been spending your time over the last decade.
Well, aside from working in the Florida Marlins, Miami Marlins now organization, and the last 3 years with the Chicago Cubs, I stumbled into a funeral home business, and I'm the owner of a funeral home.
When you were growing up, obviously baseball was a passion and you dreamed of playing in the Major League Baseball. But was the funeral home business ever something, even when you, in your younger years, you thought, I could see myself going down that road if baseball doesn't work out?
Not at all, not even close. As a matter of fact, when I was younger, I was afraid at the sight of a course itself, and you couldn't even get me to venture near a funeral home. It reminded me of maybe being a little kid watching a scary movie and not being able to sleep at night.
Are there any skills that you built up in baseball that have carried over and are helping you do, a better job as a funeral home director now?
Well, I think baseball, in a sense, humbled me because of the success and failures that you endure throughout the course of when you're playing. And what I try to do is not say too much, but make sure that they understand that I'm always there for them, keeping them in prayer. And the main thing is for them to be at peace as soon as they can.
During the pandemic, I'd love to hear a little bit about what that has meant for your business. Are you seeing many COVID-related deaths, and how has that changed the way you do things like body pickups?
We've really stepped up our sanitizing procedure, our precaution, and in an effort to ensure that we are practicing as safe as possible. We haven't had but 7 COVID cases to date, 4 of which were direct cremations. We've had 3 services, one as late as about a week ago. And what we've had to do is make sure that we properly dress, the mask, the gloves. We carefully sanitize any case before we remove it. We sanitize the vehicles, sanitize the prep room. We're constantly sanitizing the chapel. Now we're, in a sense, drawing more attention to social distancing. We're only allowing 10, maybe 15 people max if we have a chapel service because of social distancing.
With COVID, you're now doing more virtual ceremonies as well. Can a family have as much closure doing that as actually coming to a service in person, Andre?
Well, we realized that because of the number of people we're allowing to actually come into the service itself, families don't get a proper send-off. And we've tried to get them to understand these are the guidelines and this is where we are today. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough for a family member to have to withstand not being able to see a loved one send off. And we do allow streaming so that, those that won't be able to get into the service itself be allowed to actually witness it.
You had someone working with you in your chapel doing music, and he's recently passed. Can you just tell us his story?
Yes, he was a musician, and he got sick. He got sick on Easter, and he went into the hospital, and he was, never able to recover. He was diagnosed with COVID, and it kind of, rocked the staff a little bit because of the relationship that we had there.
What's been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself through this job?
I've learned a lot about myself, and that is I felt that as a baseball player, I was a quiet leader. I tried to lead by example and not be too vocal. I didn't really like addressing or the attention of the media. I just wanted to go out enjoy myself and play the game. But I feel that, that was a different form of leadership. You got to know how to really reach out to the families in a desperate time. You got to know how to stay on top of your staff and make sure that they're all on the same page.
Do you? I thought I'd read a clip, an interview with you where you, first time you were driving a hearse, actually turned around and made a couple comments to the body in the back of the hearse.
It wasn't that I was afraid to drive it. I just that was not really something that was my comfort zone immediately. And I just said, you know what? Let me do this so I can get each and everything that I fear about the industry, I've had fears about, out of my system. And I just sat in the hearse, I cranked the hearse up, and I looked back at the coffin and I said, Mrs. Bruton, that was her last name. I said, I'll make sure that I make this ride as comfortable as possible.
How often during services or working with a family do people want to talk baseball and have you share some baseball stories with them?
I don't get a lot of that, but every now and then I'll get a call at the funeral home, or I'll get a member of a family that may come in, and some people didn't really even believe it initially. I had a kid, well, he wasn't a kid, he was an adult at this stage. I met him when he was a kid out at Pro Player Stadium, and we were on a house call, and he came to the door. You could see that he had been shedding tears, and he looked up at me and he stared. He didn't say anything. And he said to me, he said, "Are you who I think you are?" And I said, "Well, who do you think I am?" He said, "The Hawk." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh my God." And he cheered up just that instant, and he left. And he was gone for about 15 seconds. And he came back and he had a family photo album. And he showed a picture of himself and me that was taken out at Pro Player Stadium when he was 12 years old. And just to think that one instance, I brought a smile to his face.
Have you spent any time, having watched so many funerals, thinking about what you want your own funeral to be like, Andre?
If I know my wife, if I should pass before she do, it's probably going to be a musical event. She know that I like gospel music, and not too long though. I don't want a service that's going to be too long. I used to tell my mother when I was younger, well, if I passed, if you have to bury me, I want a horse and white carriage. I want white horses in the carriage. And she would always chuckle to me. She said, "I got you, baby."